Hello and welcome to the 3 Design Care video series. In this project we'll be looking at doing rope in 3Shaper. So the first part, I'm going to go ahead and just add a new part to my project, and then we'll go ahead and add a 3Shaper model to the project by clicking on 3Shaper. And the first part here, we're just going to practice the technique, show you how it's done, and then the second part we'll build an actual ring from it. So we're going to start with a 2D shape, the ring shape. And this one we can set to any size we want, like so. And we're going to do 24 splits on that, 24 edges called portions. And then we can go ahead and switch over to edge mode. And I'm going to select one of these yellow edges going across the ring, and we'll do a ring loop. Okay, now we're going to split that a couple times. We're going to split that using the split and pull tool in the edges and vertices section. And we're going to slide it over towards the inner edge and apply it. Okay, I'm going to select this longer edge here again, do another edge ring, and do another split and pull. And this time we're going to click on symmetric position to put it on the opposite side. Okay. Now we're going to do that again for these two smaller edges. So another split and pull. Oops. Escape out of that. I'm going to do another edge ring first and then another split and pull. This time resetting it to the center, like so. Okay. The next step, we're going to do an edge ring. So I'm going to select one of these edges. It's the third one from the outside, and do an edge loop. And then using our rotate tool on the blue axis, we're going to spin it. Something like that. Okay. Then we're going to go to face mode. Select one of these faces, the larger ones that we just twisted. And we're going to do a face loop. So the loop selection, we can loop the selection around. The arrows on a twisted face like this can get a little odd, so picking the right one, I think it's the top right corner. Nope. So just undo that and try the next one over. So we should get that selection like so. Okay, now we're just going to jump over to extrude, and we're going to change the pocket mode to split. And we're going to just pull up on it. And we should get our rope-like texture just like that. Okay. So that's it for the technique. It's pretty simple once you've seen it and know how to do it. But we're going to take this concept a little further and build it into our ring design. Okay, so for this next part, we'll go ahead and take what we learned for the technique and apply it to a ring design. So I have a new project opened up here. We're going to go to the part module. We do need to go to the part module first because we're going to jump over to the jeweler's bench and create a ring size. It's going to make it easier to size our ring in 3Shaper with some sort of guide to follow. So let's set up our ring size. I'm going to use a US size 9. I don't really need the plane on top, so we'll go ahead and turn that off if you want and validate. Okay, now we're ready to jump into 3Shaper. So we're going to add a 3Shaper model to our tree. And from the front view here, actually any view is fine because we're going to notice that when we click on our ring, our 2D ring, it's going to be in the OXY plane. So flip that over to the OXZ. And then we can flatten the view here, and this is going to be where we can scale it to fit to our ring size. Okay, we're going to do 24 portions, and for the thickness, we're going to do 4 millimeters. So now we're ready to start subdividing it the way we want. We're going to go into edge mode and select one of these yellow lines here and do an edge ring and a split and pull. And the first split we're going to do pretty close to the edge here. There's no mathematical measurements here, but basically what I do for a small split like this is I push my red arrow right up to the edge of the surface there. That just gives me an idea of where to put the next one. So we'll validate that, and we'll click this edge again and do another one, edge ring, split and pull, and just slide it to the opposite side. You can't use symmetrical position because the area that this line covers is now shorter. So just do the same thing, kind of just give yourself a visual guide and validate that. Okay, next we're going to create the channels that we're going to put our texture, rope texture into. So I'm going to go into face mode, and we're going to skipping these 4 here, starting with this face, and hold Control and select all of them down, and then skipping these 2. So that's going to give us an area for our setting at the top, and this will give us an area for sizing on the metal ring. Okay. With that selected, we can now go into extrude. We're going to do a negative extrude, so again we can't measure this one, so we'll just measure it visually. And if you push down and keep that held down, oh, I still have split mode on, so we're going to undo that and turn that back to connected and push that down. And I'm going to go down about 1 millimeter, so you can see that on next to the arrow there, just like that. Okay, now we're going to flip back over to the front view, and we're going to go into edge mode, and it's going to be hard to select these edges with it in soft mode, so we're going to change our view to polyhedral or box mode. And what we're going to do is, skipping this first line, we're going to select this edge all the way, all the way down to the end. Okay, and a quicker way to do that, if you just double click that line, that'll do an edge ring, or I'm sorry, an edge loop, and then you can hold Control to remove that extra one that you don't want. And you can do that on the other side, double click and then single click to remove that one. Okay, flatten this back out and go back into soft mode. Actually, keep that in polyhedral mode. We're going to do a rotate, and we're going to rotate that group towards the corner, stopping right about there. Okay, now don't worry about the other side because that's also rotating the same direction. The reason we included it in our selection is that way we can keep our rotation centered as possible. See, it starts to distort around here. We don't want to do that too much. It'll be noticeable in our design. From here, we can go into point mode, and let's extrude it first. It's easier to see what we're doing. So we're going to go back into face mode and select just these faces on this side. Let me turn back to just selection. Okay, so those polygons there. And we're going to go into smooth mode and extrude. This time we do want to split the extrusion and turn to the side, and we're going to pull up, and we're going to go just slightly less than 1 millimeter this time, so it's a little bit protected under there, not sticking out over our channel. And then we can go into point mode and kind of play around with this end here where we've got a bit of a gap. Again, box mode is easier for that, so we want to grab those 2 points and then use our move tool to just kind of move that more towards the corner. You can switch back to soft mode here. You don't want to go too far. It'll start to wrinkle that corner up. Something like that. And then we can do the same for these 2 points. Just do a marquee selection to make sure you got both of them. And we can turn that just a little bit more so it fills in that gap a little bit. So this is all optional, and it's up to you how you want it to look. But I think it looks a little nicer if we take the time to push those in just a bit. for those bottom and top parts of our rope. Okay, so from here we can exit out of, or before we do that, go to face mode, select half of your faces, and we're going to select the right half since that doesn't have the texture on it, and delete it. Right, and then one more thing I want to set up is to split across here just a little bit. That'll take care of that softness for their channel. And if we just click one of those and do an edge ring and do a split and pull, and I'm going to split it right about in the middle like so, and then do the same thing for the bottom. Edge ring, split and pull, and we'll just split it the same area. So that'll flatten that area back out a little bit. That also gives us on the top a line to start from when we start cutting up our ring for the setting. Okay, so now we can exit 3Shaper to the parametric tools, and we're going to add a parametric symmetry. So go ahead and mirror. Make sure it does mirror to the correct side. If it looks funny, then it's probably on the wrong plane. Just change out the plane. And then go ahead and weld it back together and validate that. Okay, so I want to do a new edit surface on our new version here with the mirror already applied. So we'll go ahead and click the edit surface button to add a new edit to it. And we're going to split up for our top of our shank. So we're going to use the split edges tool, and you can be in any mode for this. And we're going to split from here to here and to the middle, and then back to this corner and back to that corner. And then selection mode under faces, we're going to remove these faces we just created. So another remove faces. Okay. And I want this corner to be a little sharper, so I'm going to chamfer it. So selecting, I double click to do an edge loop on both of those and do a chamfer. And just a small chamfer, 0.01 from the last one we used. We'll take care of that. And then we can shape our little cutout here by using our move tool. And we'll do the same thing in the middle. So again, making room for our setting. If you've already created your setting, this is a little easier because you have something visually to follow and shape this the way you want. So we can just tweak that. This is the fun part, of course. Once you get your mesh set up, you can shape it any way you want. I'm going to do a little bit of a resize here just to get this a little bit more of a arcing angle, and then move it down a little bit more. Something like that. So again, that's the artistic part. That's up to you. Okay, now we're ready to start mirroring and bridging this. So we're going to go into face mode and select all. Just did a marquee selection. And I'm already in my move tool. If not, go to your move tool, and we can move this out a bit. And again, paying attention to how wide you want your band to be. Somewhere in there. And then switch over to rotate, and we'll turn to the side and give this a bit of an angle so we get a nice tapered ring. And somewhere right in there. So again, if you want this to be a specific shape or specific angle, set that up in 3Design first with some guidelines, and then you have something to follow. But we're just going to eyeball it for now. And now we're ready to exit. And we're going to add a new mirror on top of that edit. So another mirror. The plane is correct. There's no need to weld this one since they're separate anyway. We're going to go back in and bridge them. Let's go ahead and validate that. And again, we want to edit now the 2 copies and not just the original. So instead of going through the history, we're going to add a new edit surface. And go into edge mode. And we're going to select all of the edges here. Now, when you select all the edges, look for things like this. We see this split here was included in my selection. It didn't continue across here. So that usually means we've got some weld issues. And if we go to connect vertices, this will display any bad welds. I'm not showing any detected welds there. Okay. Don't worry about all these other ones. Those are just points that are so close together that it wants to include them as not connected. So we want to be careful with that too. So it's not showing those. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and connect these manually where we know that bad edge is. So those two, just make sure when you're selecting them, you marquee select and there's nothing behind it. You don't want to connect anything else in that selection. And if I do a edge ring to test, okay, I know what the issue is here. It's because we're going from a quad to a triangle here. Okay, so we're going to have to manually select these. So I'm going to do my edge ring and remove those two and those two, and then add these two. I'm holding control. And then flip around and do the same thing. Remove these two. And using control, add those two. Okay, so now we've got just the outer two edges selected. And now if it's all selected correctly, we should be able to bridge and fill in that surface. Okay, now you can subdivide this, of course, even more by adding more subdivisions, depending on if you're going to be adding more detail to the outside of your ring. In this case, we'll leave it alone. And then we need to do the same thing for the inside edge. So let's see if this one should be able to just double click each one and then hold control and double click the other side, because there isn't that corner triangle there messing up our loop selection. So now we can just simply bridge this one. And it should fill right in. And now we've got a solid ring. We are all finished. So we can exit out of 3Shaper and go back one more time. And there's our rope pattern ring, all one solid. It's ready to go. You can add your setting and Boolean it in. Continue to work on it. You can add more detail in 3Shaper if you'd like. But that's it for this project. We'll see you next time.